something fundamental has snapped in the global order. For decades, Canada assumed the geopolitical weather would remain calm and the borders would remain open. That era is definitively over. With Donald Trump wielding economic leverage like a blunt weapon and actively fracturing historical alliances, the traditional rulebook has been thrown out the window. What we are watching in Ottawa right now is not a standard political cycle. It is a desperate, calculated pivot toward national survival. The illusion of permanent safety has evaporated, forcing an immediate and absolute structural shift.
And we do it in a rapidly changing world. War in the Middle East, Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and the new trade regimes are all reshaping the global economy in real time. Some of these effects are immediate and profound, closing markets, disrupting supply chains, halting investments. And in the face of that, Canada is focused on what we can control, building a stronger, more independent, more resilient economy, an economy built on the solid foundations of Canadian industries and workers, and bolstered by international trade with a diverse set of reliable partners.
That is not just political commentary. That is a threat assessment. The reality is that the safety net is gone. And when the safety net vanishes, a nation cannot afford the luxury of partisan bickering. This is exactly why the political landscape inside Canada is suddenly shifting at breakneck speed. You are seeing lifelong opposition members crossing the floor, abandoning their own parties to join Mark Carney's government. On the surface, this looks like a standard political victory. But look closer. This is not about absorbing progressive values. It is about stockpiling resilience. Because when you are bracing for an economic storm from Washington, you don't need politicians arguing over ideology. You need builders. You need structural capacity.
And what is your message to Liberals who are uncomfortable with the idea of someone like Ms. Gladue, who's been open about her socially conservative views, joining your caucus?
Well, there's two things. One is we're fortunate to have somebody who has long experience in business, long experience. It brings great managerial and technical expertise. I mean, we're actually here at a project that requires that level of expertise. I mean, she's not going to run this project, but this is. You laugh. You're not laughing. Your colleagues are laughing. Just to be clear, Ms. Burke is not laughing. But you need a mix of expertise in government. You don't need a government of just lawyers. It's good to have some lawyers. You don't need a government of just people who've been politicians. You need government. It's good to have doctors in your government. It's good to have people who've been engineers. It's good to have people who've worked in non-governmental organizations, who've worked in philanthropies, been teachers, been nurses, others. You want to have that diversity of perspective. We're getting more of that diversity, not just geographically, but from experience, at a time that's crucial for the country.
Expertise over ideology. That is the new baseline. Carney is not building a traditional cabinet. He is engineering a war room. For a logistics worker in Montreal or a manufacturer in Ontario, this shift means everything. They do not care about parliamentary debates or partisan colors. They care if their supply chains will survive Donald Trump's next midnight tantrum. While Trump uses noise and unpredictability to force allies into submission, Carney is utilizing measured control to build internal resilience. He is neutralizing internal friction to project outward strength. But internal strength means nothing if the external perimeter collapses. And here is where the strategy becomes truly aggressive. Because the threat is no longer just economic. It is military, and it is immediate.
And Donald Trump has threatened to punish NATO members, such as Spain and Germany, for not helping with the Iran war. How concerned are you about what this means for the stability of the military alliance?
Well, the first thing Canada does is to meet our NATO commitments, and I'll underscore that just a few weeks ago We met for the first time since the fall of the Berlin Wall our NATO commitments in terms of 2% defense spending. First point. Second point, what's important is not a number. It's important, first and foremost, protecting Canadians. And what we're doing to advance protecting Canadians includes working more closely with subsets of NATO allies, for example, the Nordic countries, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Germany, and others, for greater protection for our Arctic and an integrated protection for our Arctic. We do that within the broader framework of NATO, and I think that that is part of how NATO's enduring contribution to Canada's protection is realized. And that's a robust way of, protecting Canadians, regardless of how NATO itself evolves.
That statement is a geopolitical earthquake. It is code for a total defensive recalibration. Canada is quietly acknowledging a terrifying reality. Donald Trump might actually break NATO. So, rather than waiting for the fracture, Carney is actively forging subsets, mini alliances with the United Kingdom and Nordic nations, to lock down the Arctic. This is not just routine diplomacy. It is a structural realignment of massive proportions. He is bypassing Washington entirely to guarantee Canadian sovereignty. It proves that the government is no longer reacting to external chaos. They are preempting it. They are creating their own geopolitical gravity. But a fortress needs more than just walls and military alliances. It needs physical gates that cannot be closed by a hostile neighbor.
What we're focused on, what we've been focused on since April 28th of last year, after the election, has been having a very clear plan for the country and putting it to work. And this is an example of that approach. We took a situation where, the board of the Port of Montreal, Quebec, the Quebec government had moved things forward, but there were things that were still holding it up. A number of them are on the federal side. Focus, delivery, determination, and now we're finally, 40 years later, collectively breaking ground, and this is going to be great for the region, great for Montreal, great for Quebec, great for Canada, and if it's good for Canada, it'll be good for the world. And that's the approach. And others are attracted by it and coming to us, that's great. But if no one else comes, then we'll just keep going.
Focus, delivery, determination. Those are the mechanics of survival. Breaking ground on a massive 40-year delayed port project right now is not a coincidence. It is a deliberate, calculated show of force. The message to the United States and to the global market is absolute. Canada will build its own gateways. If the southern border becomes a weaponized choke point under Donald Trump, Canada will simply bypass it and trade directly with the rest of the globe. What makes this shift so striking is how methodically it is happening. We are witnessing the total transformation of a G7 nation from a comfortable, reliant ally into a hardened, independent actor. While Trump dominates the global news cycle with disruption, threats, and transactional pressure, Mark Carney is enforcing stability. He understands that noise is not power. Control is power. And so he is pulling rival politicians, global trade routes, and military defense networks under one unified, unbreakable umbrella. This is the essence of true resilience. It is the realization that in a fundamentally unstable world, a nation must either consolidate its power or be torn apart by the chaos of its neighbors. Think about the family sitting at the kitchen table tonight in Alberta or Nova Scotia. They are watching a volatile world move closer to their doorstep every single day. They demand an institutional shield. And that is exactly what is being constructed. Every new trade route, every military subset, and every floor-crossing MP is another brick in that shield. This is not just a government preparing for the next election cycle. This is a nation preparing for the next era. They are building the vital resilience to withstand the storm. Subscribe to Canada SR for sharp, in-depth analysis on the geopolitical dynamics that are quietly reshaping Canada's future. Because moments like this aren't just headlines, they're turning points